Hello, you know in the winter, what do I love? I love a good soup, but I want it to be hearty, delicious, wholesome, nutritious, all those things. And this sausage kale Italian soup is exactly what I go for. And what's really fun about it is we're making our own sausage very quick. It's a simple chicken sausage, and you put it all together and then you have this delicious soup simmering. It is so good, and it's exactly what I want in the winter because it hits all those notes. It's hearty with the sausage in it that you're making. It has the kale with the green and the vegetables, some potato. It has all those delicious flavors with herbs de Provence and basil. I am excited for you to make this meal, and I think you're gonna love it because yes, it eats like a meal. So first, the sausage. It sounds complicated. It's not like a true sausage, but it's a really quick, easy sausage. So I have some ground chicken. The reason I'm doing chicken is just because I like that it's kind of a neutral flavor. It goes really well with all the things we're gonna add to it. So with the sausage, sometimes you can do like a panade, which is gonna be some bread with some milk, and you put it in with the meat, and that helps retain some of the moisture. I do something a little different sometimes. So I like to thicken my soup also like this, but I'm gonna take some beans. This is a can of white beans, and I have the liquid with it. I'm just gonna take my immersion blender, I'm gonna put it in there and blend it up. So there you get that creamy starchiness. This is something my mom always did too. On a lot of her soups, you don't always even know it. But what I like about it is you can add a little bit to the sausage, not a lot, and it adds kind of this creamy starchiness that you don't really know is there, and yet it just it's just good. So I'm adding a little bit of that, and now we're gonna season it up. So I'm starting with a little bit of fennel seed. Fennel is actually pretty traditional in sausage mixtures, and I really like, not only do I like it, you need it. And I'm gonna do some ground allspice. Now, allspice again, it's actually traditional in sausage. It blends really well with the fennel. Allspice, and in a lot of spices in general, I like when you can go back and forth between, savory and sweet. Okay, this is one of those, I usually take all these off. Let's have a think, why do we need this on all our spices? We don't, but I'm gonna use it here and just not measure. So I'm doing some smoked paprika. What I like about the smokiness is it kind of gives you that trick of something that's been made a lot longer and a lot more time that goes into it, like a traditional sausage, without the actual time that goes into it. So then I'm gonna add some herbs de Provence. I love the mixture of herbs de Provence. It just adds that great hit of all the flavors you're kind of going for. It's all done for you, which I like. We're gonna of course add some salt. Salt is super important with any meat. Chicken especially, it needs that salty kick, especially when you're going with the sausage too. Some fresh ground pepper, gonna add that right in there. And then we're gonna add a little bit of garlic. And I'm just gonna do the garlic press so I can get it all right in there. Press it in, there it is. And see, I do make sure to scrape all that off. That's all that flavor, goes right in there. That's what I love. So, we can try to do this with a spatula to be cleaner. Your hand is gonna work really well too, but chicken is pretty pliable, especially when it's ground like this. And so as you see, we're getting it mixed fairly easily here. And I do wanna make sure that you're taking some time to actually mix it because those spices we want to blend in really well, and we don't just want pockets of a strong spice somewhere. So as we're going, we just make sure to have it all mixed. Look at that. This is what's great is you can have the ground chicken in your freezer for quite a while, pull it out, have it ready to go. This can be a weeknight meal. It's done probably in about an hour. It smells good. It smells like sausage. So now what I'm gonna do is just use a little scoop, and I am using a small enough one because I want these to be kind of maybe slightly bigger than bite size, but honestly, I don't want them so big that you have to cut them. I want them to be able just to be eaten kind of and be seen, but not annoying so much that you're gonna have to actually cut through them. So I'm using slightly smaller, and it's easy. So what we're doing with these is once they're done, we're gonna bake them. So they don't bake in the soup. That way they get a little bit of those nice browned edges that you do when you roast something. So you get some of that extra flavor on it, and you just put them in the soup at the end. You don't have to worry about them cooking fully in the soup. It's kind of perfect. So I'm gonna keep making these little meatballs, and we'll just put them in the oven. The meatballs are in the oven, and that's what's great. You don't have to do anything with them. You don't have to cook them in the liquid, wait forever. They're in the oven, it's starting to smell good. So I have some olive oil heating up in my Dutch oven, and I'm gonna add some onion. So I like to start the onion just a little bit before. That way it can start to soften. It can start cooking a little bit. I don't like the onion, obviously, to have a crunch to it at all. I don't wanna brown it. I just wanna slowly draw out the moisture that's in it and soften it. So to do that, I always also add some salt right away. That helps break it down. It helps make sure that it's not gonna get, and it adds that seasoning all along the way, which is what I want. I want seasoning throughout, because that way, at the end, you're left with a well-seasoned dish, whatever you're making, not just a soup or anything, but anything. So as that's sauteing, I have my carrot cut up, and you've heard this from me before. This is no secret. I like to make sure my vegetables have some size to them. I don't like teensy tiny vegetables because I want it to be a heartier soup. I like people to see what's in it. I don't want them to get mushy at the end. So I have those going. Now I'm gonna do some celery. Celery, this is one of my things. It's not my favorite thing just to eat on its own. I definitely find that things need the flavor, like a soup, a stew. It always needs celery to me, but I don't like big chunks of celery. So sometimes I'm a little different on that. But I am gonna add that with the onion because I like it to soften. I like those fibers in it to soften. So as that's going to, I'm gonna get ready my potato. Now I'm just doing one potato. I don't want it overburdened. This potato is still from my grandma from her garden from last fall when she got them. And so I scrubbed it. When I know where the potatoes are from, I don't peel them because I do the same with my carrots. I never get that. To me, if you don't, and if it's looking really bad or if it's extra dirty, obviously you may need to peel it. But if it's from a good organic source and you can scrub it well and have it looking good, then I don't do that. Same with my carrots, especially when they're my homegrown carrots. But this one does have a little bit of green tint to it, but that's totally fine. So I'm just chopping it up into some smaller pieces just because this is a quick cooking soup. So this does not need tons of cooking time, and I don't want it just to have to, have big pieces of potato that have to cook through. So I'm gonna let that soften a little bit, then we'll add the carrot, we'll add the potato, we're gonna pull this all together. It's a pretty quick soup, and it's good. The onion and celery is softened, it's getting translucent, so I'm gonna add some garlic, and again, I like to just press it in. This is my homegrown garlic. I think it is seriously one of the most underrated and rewarding things to grow because it's super simple. So if you haven't, you need to grow garlic. It's worth it. So right at the end, I like to add the garlic. You don't want it to burn and get the long cooking time that the onions had. So you want to put it in when they're just about done. So we can get a few little seconds there and heat up and get some of that flavor in there. So along with this, I like to put my spices in now too. So I'm putting in some crushed red pepper. You just want a little bit of heat. Nothing that's too strong, but you need that undertone of heat in there just to kind of wake everything up. I'm gonna add some dried basil. Guys, I'm using dried herbs here. I know sometimes they aren't, we don't use them much anymore, but I think they're kind of have their place in the winter when it's something that you're just doing from home. It's definitely what you want to add. So I did some basil dried and some dried oregano, which instantly smells delicious. So now I want to add the carrot I have chopped up and the potato. So I have my last bit of potato here. So the vegetables are in there, which is perfect. Now I'm gonna add a can of white beans. This is what's great about good soups, is when you can have this stuff on hand that are in your pantry. Now, I do not drain them and rinse them like you so often see. That liquid that they're canned in has a lot of flavor. And it actually has that starchy, that good starchiness from the beans. So I like to add that in there too. And then I'm gonna add some chicken stock. If you want to make this vegetarian, obviously not do the meatballs, you could do a vegetable stock. Still delicious, still perfect. This is what I love. You get all that beautiful color in there. You get the heartiness. Guys, I wish you could smell this because that basil and oregano. And then you have the chicken sausage in the oven that is just cooking away, and I think it's almost done. Look at that. That is exactly what I want. Now at the end, we are gonna add, of course, some kale. I know, you can kind of guess that with me. I love kale, and you need the green. eat the pyramid, people. You need that. So let's look at our chicken meatballs here. As you can see, they're done. They have firmed up. They're getting that nice golden color to them. You can always tell they're done. I mean, chicken doesn't take long, but they're firm. They're perfect. So I'm gonna actually just set them here, let them cool slightly. We can put them at the end too. This soup is coming together. I'm gonna let it come to a boil, reduce it to a simmer so the vegetables can cook. This is a good time. This is good. So I love when a soup is kind of done, you add the kale so it wilts into it but doesn't overcook. So here I have kale, I'm using red kale. You can use whatever you can find. Sometimes with them you can just strip it off like that. If it doesn't work like that, you can just take that kale, lay it on its side. This is a curly kale, and you can just cut off the rib, either way. So then I'm gonna just tightly crunch it, and don't worry about smashing it because that just tenderizes it too. It's like when you're making a kale salad and you wanna massage the kale. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. So I'm cutting it up. Look at that beautiful heartiness. It's exactly what you want. So if you come look at the soup, what I love, it has simmered, it is beautiful. So right before we add the kale, and I like to do this at the end because the soup sometimes, depending on the pan, wants to stick if you do this too early. I have that blended beans that we had before. So what that does is it adds texture. It kind of adds a nice viscous, like just beautiful mouthfeel to this, and it kind of thickens it, but also adds a creaminess without any dairy. And I love that because that way, if you know you have problems with dairy, and also I just think you don't have to worry then about it overcooking. Sometimes with dairy you don't want to boil it because it could curdle. So it just adds that nice kind of just extra thing. So I'm gonna add the kale in too. We have it chopped and you can just make it rustic. I don't like soups that are fussy. This isn't a pureed soup that has to be perfect. You just want this to look at that. It's wilting in. I'm gonna let that wilt in just a little bit. The meatballs are done. They have only sat out, so they're still hot because they've only sat out for a few minutes. Look, that's exactly what I love. Now, I personally probably eat it like this. If you like your kale more done, obviously, just keep it to how you want. So at this point, it's not too hot. I'm gonna bring it over. We're gonna set it here. And this is what I love. You have the beautiful colors in here. You have the bright oranges. You have it all right in there because the carrots and the potato, and none of it, it smells amazing. And you almost get a creaminess from it. Now, I like to put the meatballs right into it. Personally, I just think that's good and delicious. You could also, if you want it more like portion controlled, you could put the meatballs into a bowl and then put the soup over it. We don't need to be that fussy. Sometimes you can just keep a few meatballs to the side if you need to. I'm gonna stir those in. That way they just kind of warm through again too. The flavors all meld together. And let it sit just a couple minutes to finish that kale, and then we're gonna serve it up. The soup has sat for just a couple minutes. You can see it's still steaming. So this is like that perfect kind of weeknight meal. But you know, it's good enough whenever we can have company over again. It's good enough for that too, and that's what I love. You get all those flavors and textures, and it's just exactly like it warms your heart. Get a little bit of that potato. Okay, the green on the potato, just to tell you, if you're worried about it, it's usually because of how you store them. If they stay with light too long, they can turn a little green. This is delicious. I love the flavor in it. I love that it just has a little bit of viscosity with that pureed bean, but not being too thick. It has still that delicious texture in the vegetables. They haven't overcooked, they're not mushy. You can get some beans in there. The kale. This is a really fun soup, and what I love is I think your family will love it. It has all the components. It's chicken, so it's not a strong meat if some of your kids don't like certain meats. The sausage is just well seasoned, but not strong. It's really a delicious soup. It's great for a winter day, but it can be eaten all throughout the fall and winter. So I hope you try this, but most of all, I hope you share this around so many people can see how easy, fun, and delicious meals can be to make. They don't have to be complicated or fussy. This goes together so quick, cooks in like under an hour, and that's everything. So share this around because that's what helps me the most, helps everyone else see it. Tag your friends, put it on your wall. Get the word out that this is good. And of course, for the recipe, check wiseguide.com, my website. This recipe, so many other recipes and tips. And until next time, have fun, be good, and enjoy some good food. That's what we all should do.